Hello. Okay, now our guest of honor is here, so we can get started. As I said, my name is Sydney Nelson. I am the communications officer at Right Livelihood, and this is a press conference with one of this year's Right Livelihood laureates, Dr. Eunice Brookman-Amissah. She was just announced this morning as the recipient of the award, the honorary award for pioneering discussions on women's reproductive rights in Africa, paving the way for liberalized abortion laws and improved safe abortion access. As a quick reminder, this press conference will be held in English. And if you would like any photos, videos, or B-roll that shows Dr. Brookman-Amissah, you can find all of that on our website. So to kick off the press conference today, I will ask Dr. Brookman-Amissah for a quick statement, and then we will open the floor for questions. The press conference will be and is being recorded, so we can provide the recording to you afterwards if you email us. So to begin, Dr. Brookman-Amissah, it's been 30 years since you began your work on expanding safe abortion access in sub-Saharan Africa. How has the situation improved since you began your work, and why is it still an issue that we need to be talking about today?
First of all, thank you very much for this honor, which I deem an honor for all the women of Africa and other parts of the world where abortion rights are still an issue. I'm very happy to be here with you. Yes, I started this work about 30 years ago. A lot has been achieved since that time, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done. As they usually say, Africa is the abode of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. African countries have some of the most restrictive abortion laws in the world, all inherited from colonial abortion laws dating back to the late 19th century, and which some of us still keep, even though the originators of these laws, the colonial masters have all changed their laws in the interest of women's health and women's rights and equity to reproductive justice. It's taken this long because we had to start from scratch. When I started 30 years ago, abortion was not a word that you could mention in polite society. So we really had to work. And I reckon that for something that is regulated at regional, country, legal levels, one has to deal with the people at the top. So we worked with the African Union to see whether the laws can be changed from that end. We worked with regional institutions that have a bearing on this issue. And then we worked with regional groups of ministers, ministers of health, ministers of women's affairs, etc. And we worked with the media. We worked with women's rights organizations, all to bring back consensus to the fact that unsafe abortion is a wrong to women, that no woman has to die because they lack reproductive health services. So it took a while, but eventually the African Union came out with the African Women's Protocol, otherwise known as the Maputo Protocol, in 2003, and which came into effect in 2005. And that was a great boost for our work, because of all the international conventions in the world, the African Women's Protocol is the only one that, explicitly, ascribes reproductive access to safe abortion as a right. We work to disseminate this, to get countries to ratify the document. And so it's been ongoing. In the meantime, countries have changed their laws, those which had laws that they hadn't looked at, but which actually contained exceptions for safe abortion, have started implementing these and giving women the right to safe abortion. We've had to work with organizations that trained doctors. We've had to advocate for midwives to be allowed and certified to provide services, because most of the laws say only doctors. And in Africa, there are more midwives than doctors. And midwives are where women are. And so we had to work with the International Confederation of Midwives, for example, to change their policies to allow midwives to provide services. So all this has been going on, and it's taken this long for us to get here. But I think that now abortion is right on the a word in the vocabulary of Africa, right from the African Union at all country levels and on the mouth of everybody.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to now open up for questions from all of our attendees, the participants. So if you have a question, you can either raise your hand and we'll unmute you, or you can write directly in the Q&A chat. But in both cases, please introduce yourself with your name and your affiliation. Okay, so our first question, I will unmute you now.
Okay. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting to hear that you have this abortion implemented in Africa. But I want to ask some questions. You know, when we talk about China, we think that government action to take a policy as family planning and with one child policy, you have a lot of criticism, criticize that. But in Africa, without family planning, but with the improvement of living standards or improvement of life, do you see a natural process that the children reduced to be born?
Well, yes, that's an interesting question. Africans love their children, and until a few years ago, the average family size was about 5 and beyond, and some families had 10 children. But of course, that is not it is not something that is sustainable. And so over the years, family planning has been introduced into our countries, both as a means of reducing family size so that families are able to look after the few children that they have, but also to look at the demographic issue of not having too many young people than our economies can sustain. So our work has been linked very closely with family planning. When a woman has an unwanted pregnancy warranting an unsafe abortion, it means that at somewhere along the line she's been failed by not having access to family planning or contraception, as I used to, I prefer to call it. So we work along also on contraception and family planning so that women will not have unwanted pregnancies and therefore resort to unsafe abortions. The population of Africa, as you know, is growing faster than any other region of the world. And with resources, we think they are unlimited, but we still need to look at the population growth in Africa, and it's all part of the women's rights and improving women's lives that we are working for, in addition to access to safe abortion. I hope that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then can I ask another question?
Yes, but first, can you please introduce yourself and your affiliation?
Yes, I am Xue Chen Aksa Song. I'm from Green Post. I also freelance for some Chinese media. But Green Post is my web media or website. greenpost.se, located in Stockholm, but it's open to the whole world, both in Chinese and English. I think this question is very interesting, you know, abortion or family planning and so on. So I just wonder, you know, what is your current challenge or difficulties?
Well, I would say the challenges are that we still need to press on. We still need to do advocacy work for countries to realize that unsafe abortions due to unwanted pregnancies contribute to the huge maternal mortality problems that we have in Africa, higher than any other region of the world. Unsafe abortions cause about 26,000 deaths in Africa every year. That is 60% of the total world world's deaths from unsafe abortion. So we still need to work on it, and working hand in hand with preventing unwanted pregnancy has been one of the ways that we've done it right from the beginning. So it's not just about abortion, it's about preventing unwanted pregnancy, looking after women who want to continue with their pregnancies to term, and then providing safe, respectful abortions to women who request for termination of pregnancy, and then putting them on family planning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions from our participants? You can either write in the Q&A chat or you can also raise your hand. Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions, so maybe I can continue just asking you questions, Eunice. And one thing that we could talk about is, oh wait, do I see a hand raised? It looks like it's the same. If you have another question, you can maybe write in the chat. I'm not sure if your hand is raised again or if it is raised from before, but for now, Eunice, or Dr. Brookman-Amissah, my next question is the current situation worldwide. If you could talk about the situation for women's safe abortion access around the world.
Well, just as in Africa, we've been chalking these, these successes bit by bit. I think I probably did not mention that since we started work, at least 6 countries have changed their abortion laws, and many more are implementing existing laws that allow for access to safe abortion. In South America, there have been great successes for women in Mexico first, and then in Colombia and in Chile. And most recently, we've heard it's in the news that in Brazil, the Supreme Court is going to make a decision, take a decision soon on whether abortion should be legalized or not. All indications point to the fact that it's going to be a resounding yes. So we are waiting for that to happen. Unfortunately, as this has gone on, the great bastion of human rights, the United States of America, has taken away the right to abortion of American women, which is very, very sad, because we used to use the Roe versus Wade decision, which provided rights to American women as one of our arguing points, as one of our advocacy points to other people to show that indeed access to safe abortion is a right. But then this is gone. And as we all know, the US has a lot of influence on other countries, and especially on African countries, where some of the aid money for work in our ministries of health comes from the US. In fact, most of the reproductive health funding comes from the US. And the US has this law that we call the Helms Amendment, which, and then the gag rule adopted by the US, which prohibits countries from using American funding for doing work on abortions, and even for using your own country's own funds for doing work on abortion if you receive funds from the US. It's been a very, very retarding effect on our work. Probably one of the reasons it's taken this long, 30 years. And even though the rule affects organizations and not governments, because governments receive, the ministries of health receive this money, the gag rule also has a chill effect on ministries of health in the region, such that they are not willing to be seen to be actively involved in the push towards access to safe abortion. It's been a very difficult situation for us. And I must say that's one of the reasons that's like your first question, that is taking us 30 years to get here. And I don't know what is going to happen now. Things might improve because there's a lot of indignance worldwide about the change in Roe versus Wade, and therefore it might prove to be positive. But on the other hand, we just wait to see how it will impact work in our countries.
Yeah, thank you. And what about in your region specifically? What obstacles are there to still overcome to improve access even more?
Well, the issue of stigma is still there. When you've had 2 centuries or more of, laws that say something is wrong, changing the laws may provide the services, but it still takes some time for people to change their attitudes. Excuse me, to change their attitudes to something that they have been socialized all their lives to think is wrong. So we are working on that, removing the stigma through exercises, including values clarification, to allow people to take their own selves out of the equation and to look at the issues as they are. We've had some religious leaders who are very supportive of the issue, and so it is not impossible for that to happen. But we need to have many more governments, and especially parliaments, which are the ones who make laws and review laws, to be sensitized and to be aware of the ravages of unsafe abortion, and therefore move to change the laws in these countries. All African countries have restrictive laws, as I said, inherited from the colonial laws. And all the colonial laws have gone and changed their laws. And we in Africa are still clinging to these laws. And they cause a lot of damage, a lot of ill health, and a lot of misery, and sadly, a lot of deaths also.
Yes, thank you. Okay, if nobody has any further questions for Dr. Brookman-Amissah, I'll wrap up the press conference. That was our final one from today. And as I said, we have all of the recordings from today's press conferences with the 4 2023 Right Livelihood laureates available. If you would like them, we can send them to you via email. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining, and have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice talking.
Thank you.